most valuable sales asset is invisible, or at least it may seem that way to you. Think about it. Where are you looking every day? Out there, right? Well, the last person you look at every day is also the most influential. The easiest person to overlook and the one you're most likely to undervalue is the one who talks to you the most. Who is it? The most valuable sales asset you have is you. Now, you may not agree. You may not think very highly of yourself at the moment. You may think you don't have what it takes to become a sales master. But one thing is for sure, how you see yourself will determine your success. Dr. Joyce Brothers said something Zig often echoed. You cannot consistently perform in a manner that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. So, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as your most valuable asset or your greatest liability? Do you see yourself as having the potential for greatness? If you don't have a positive self-image, then it's going to be tough to make the sale. You simply won't be able to make a convincing close. In my experience, the best way to build your confidence and self-image quickly is to start with easier sales. Find your easy wins and then leverage those to improve your self-image and strive for the next level. Walk, don't run at first. Everybody wants to hit a home run with every swing, but Hall of Fame baseball players focus on getting the bat on the ball every time, and the rest takes care of itself. There is no disgrace in small beginnings. Zig had one, I had one, so start where you are with a smaller, easier task to experience some success, create momentum, and build a positive self-image. As Zig said, hurricanes and tornadoes get all the press, but termites do more damage. So easier wins provide the quickest path to a positive attitude. If you don't have a positive attitude, potential customers will sense it. It's going to affect your work ethic and your ability to focus and be creative. Bottom line, before you can experience success in sales, and I mean breakthrough 100x success, you need to develop the invisible asset, you. You must become the right person, the very best version of you. Let's watch now as Zig tells his own story of what happened when he met a guide who helped him realize the power of his most valuable sales asset.
Personally speaking, let me tell you something. First 2.5 years I was in sales, and that's where I got my professional start. I was not what you'd call an overwhelming success. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even a whelming success. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't sell a lot, because I did. I sold my furniture, sold my car. And that is reasonably close to the truth. We had a very difficult time, and as time goes on, I'll share a little more about that. But then one day I went to a meeting. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a meeting I came within a gnat's eyelash of missing, because at 5:30 the next morning, when I was supposed to go to that meeting, I'd been there the day before, spent the day, didn't learn a thing. Have you ever been to one of those all day, not learned a thing? I didn't. Next morning at 5:30, the alarm clock sounded off. Now, in those days, it was an alarm clock. Now, of course, I recognize it as an opportunity clock. Because if you hear it, you got an opportunity to get up and go. If you can't hear it, that might mean you done got up and gone. Well, anyhow, every day is a good day, and if you don't believe it, you just try missing one of them, all right? So, opportunity clock got me out of bed, except that day it was the alarm clock. Force of habit got me up. I cracked the Venetian blinds. We were living in this luxury apartment, 3 bedrooms, or 3 rooms rather, above a grocery store, just to emphasize the luxury part of it. I looked outside, and the weather said, Ziegler, no sane human being would get up and go out there in that weather. I was driving a little Crosley automobile that didn't have a heater in it. So I did what any intelligent person would do. I lay down, and we get back in bed. But as I lay there, the words of my mother came back to me from my childhood. And words are so incredibly important. They change lives. As a child, she had said, your word is your bond. And if your word is no good, eventually you're no good. When they had given me the job, which it took me over 2 months to get, they just didn't think I could sell. And the first 2.5 years, all I did was prove they was about right. When they'd given me the job, they had made me promise that I would attend all sales meeting and all training sessions. And in 2.5 years, not only had I never missed one, I had never even been late for one. I rolled out of bed. I went to the meeting. That day changed my sales career dramatically. My hero was conducting the meeting that day. His name was P.C. Merrill. Mr. Merrill had set all of the records. He had written the training program. He was a man of absolute integrity. Now, why he chose to do this, I will never know. But when the meeting was over, there were only 21 of us there that day, but he pulled me aside and said, I want to talk with you personally. I was truly flattered. Here was a man whom I loved and trusted and respected, and he chose me out of 21. Now, why did he? I don't know. The year before, I probably had not been in the top 4,000 out of all of the salespeople in that 7,000 salesperson company. He got me aside, and it was a very short meeting. He said, Zig, I've been watching you for 2.5 years. I have never seen such a waste. And I said, well, Mr. Merrill, what do you mean? He said, I believe you could be a great one. I believe you could be a national champion. I believe you could go all the way to the top. I believe that someday, if you just believed in yourself and went to work on a regular schedule, that you could, number one, be the national champion. Number two, someday you could become an executive in this company.
Welcome back to the conversation with Kevin Harrington here in Vault 2, The Invisible Asset. Kevin, let's start with an obvious question.
Okay.
Why do you think we struggle with self-image when it comes to sales?
Well, let's put it this way. Most of the people that are out there right now, many of them have not experienced any kind of amazing success already. So they're starting at a base point where they don't have a great self-image. And so just like I started when I was a young entrepreneur, and I remember going to college, and I had already started a little bit of sales with driveway sealing and some things I was doing, but I remember in the sales college class that I went to, I'm talking to the professor, and I said, so what kind of sales background do you have? What have you sold? He said, oh, well, actually, I've never sold anything. I'm just a teacher.
Right.
Okay, so I'm like, okay. So when you think about it, it's where do you get that self-image? It a lot of times it's not happening in school, and it's not happening on your own. So you really have to seek out people to help you get that self-image. And I think ultimately this is one of the reasons why I was so excited about venturing with the Ziglar family, because Zig had created such amazing assets that help people with their self-image.
So true.
Yes.
So what were some of the keys in developing your own self-image? And was it always positive for you?
So, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a great family, 6 kids. My mother and father were very great parents, and my father was an entrepreneur. My mother was sort of a really good mother, okay, that wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or some kind of a corporate, go to college and all that. And my father, I started working, he was in the restaurant business. So I got a chance to work in his restaurants when I was 11 years old. So I got to see some of the inner workings of that. And I think it was a time of my life that I said, I was leaning towards being an entrepreneur, and being one of 6 kids. I had 2 older sisters. One was a doctor, married a doctor, one married a lawyer. And I said, well, I don't need to be a doctor or a lawyer. We got that covered. I can be the entrepreneur. So I had a chance now to go out, knock on doors, and start doing some things. And my father encouraged me. So I was very lucky to have that support system. And so now I think at the end of the day, I say that I took it as a young person and entrepreneurially focused, I took inventory of my assets. So I was, I had a good family, I had a good upbringing, I had, a mentor kind of in my life, my father, and I had some great kind of training and feel good kind of wake up in the morning stuff. So so that was very powerful for me, and I think that this gave me, kind of gave me a chance to want to control my own destiny, and was very supportive for me.
You mentioned mentor, and I know Zig always talked about P.C. Merrill, telling him that he could be great, spoke into his life. Who or did you ever have anyone that spoke words like that into your life?
Yeah, so I mentioned my father wanted me to be an entrepreneur, but he didn't give me all the path to do that. He just was like, go. Go find something, right? Well, here I was actually in one of my ventures. I was selling safety high chairs, and which was kind of an interesting thing. But it was a cold call kind of to sell safety high chair to folks that had applied for a prize that were having a baby. And so I would show up at their door and announce that they had won the prize, and now I had to sell them this safety high chair. So what happened was a lot of people said no, 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 and then finally I actually had training. The owner of the company had said, because when he first brought me into the company, he gave me a 30-page script. You gotta remember, I was 16 years old, 4'11", 100 pounds barely. I think it was 98 pounds because I wrestled that year, right? And so, I think he gave me a 30-page script because he thought, go away, I'll never see this kid again, right?
Of course,
okay,
yes.
So, because I was good in school, I studied it, came back, gave him an amazing presentation. He took me under his wings.
Wow.
He was my mentor. So I went out on sales calls with him, and he really taught me a ton. And I just feel that was a turning point in my life to actually learn how to sell. Because I wasn't afraid, because I had a great self-image, and I thought, I can do this. Yeah. I wasn't afraid to go out. I wasn't even afraid to get the door slammed in my face, and I'm not interested. But I didn't have the techniques and the systems to close those deals. So Bruce was one of those first guys, I guess like PC was for Zig. And it was just transformational for me, because I went from closing 1 out of 10 to closing 7 out of 10 kind of thing. And it was amazing.
Now that you know the secret, you are your most valuable asset. It's time to take action. You have to believe in yourself before you can expect others to believe in you. If you haven't already, pull out your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
The elevator to success is broken. Sorry, actually, it's always been out of order. There is no shortcut to sales success. You have to take the stairs. Nobody gets to bypass the process. Anyone who promises you something for nothing or an instant rise to success isn't being honest with you. The journey is worth it, but it can only be done one step at a time. The good news is that success is available for anyone willing to take the stairs. Every successful person had to start somewhere. No one was born as a major success. They developed and grew over time. Somewhere along the way, they learned the secrets and began to act on them. They did the hard work required to take their performance to the next level. That means this success thing is doable. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it if you can engage the process and take the journey one step at a time. Think about it. Have you ever tried to jump from the bottom of the steps to the top? If you did, I guarantee you, it didn't work too well. It's better to start where you are and pursue greatness one step at a time. When you try to take a shortcut to success, you're likely to fall flat on your face. The first few steps are always the most difficult, but after you make some progress, your confidence will increase. Let's watch as Zig Ziglar reflects on his own success journey. Then we'll see him sharing 4 truths about the successful salesperson.
Actually, the elevator to the top is out of order. You're going to have to take the stairs. The good news is you can take them one at a time. You can make wonderful success and progress in small increments. You don't have to be great to start, as my friend Joe Saba says, but you got to start to be great. Number one, there never has been, there never will be, in my opinion, an outstanding salesperson, one who went all the way to the top, one who was a leader. There's never been a truly outstanding salesperson who was normal. In every single instance, they're a little bit warped in their belief in what they're selling. They cannot imagine anybody not saying, yeah, I'll take it. And because they cannot imagine anybody not buying, then by the very force of their own conviction and attitude, they do end up winning those close ones. And the professional wins the close ones. And when I say wins, I mean by that he helps the prospect to win through the ownership of their product. Now, the problem with this is simply tied to the fact that a lot of times when you get so wrapped up in something and you believe in it so strongly and somebody still says no, there's a real chance you might confuse their business refusal, which is all it is, with a personal rejection, which it is not. Now, my son, for example, almost from birth understood that completely. He would ask me for something and I would say no. He wouldn't get upset. He'd just figure that old Dad had missed the question. And what he would do is that he would wait a few minutes and then give me a chance to correct an obvious mistake. Now, how many of you have got kids that are just that good to you? Can I see your hand, okay? The third point I want to make is that you've got to remember, this is critical, you've got to remember who wins. And when you understand that it is the prospect, if you are a professional, that is, the prospect is going to be the big winner. I say if you're a professional because the professional would sell only those things which would benefit the prospect in the long run, satisfying some need which is greater than the price of whatever it is you're selling. The fourth thing I want to emphasize is that there is no such thing as a natural-born salesman. I've been virtually all over this world of ours. I have seen where women have given birth to boys. I've seen where they've given birth to girls, but thus far I have never yet seen where a woman has given birth to a salesperson. Now, I read where salespeople die. So if they're not born, but they do die, then somewhere between birth and death by choice and by training, they become professional salespeople.
I'm going to tell you a little story about when I was in high school and I was trying to make some things happen for myself. In fact, this was a time I was one of 6 kids and number 4. Nothing was given to me and I had to go out and I'll say I had to hustle. And so I was being interviewed for a job to be a salesperson for a heating and air conditioning company. It was a national company called Trane Heating and Cooling. And they didn't want to hire me. They didn't want to train me because I was a high school kid that couldn't work full time. I finally sold them on letting me do it because I said, look, I know you don't want to invest in me because maybe I don't have the time, but just give me a couple of leads and I guarantee you, in my part-time, I'll sell as many deals as your full-time people do. They gave me a couple leads and within 2 weeks, I actually became the top salesman inside that company. At the end of the first month, I was number 1. And this was working part-time up against a staff of full-time people. So this was an amazing feeling for me because I built this based on my own feeling that I really knew that I could succeed, but just let me have a start. So this was kind of crawling before I walked and walking before I run. Well, now, with that success, after working for that company for a year, I realized I could start my own business. And that's what I did. So I was going into my freshman year of college. So I then started my own company called Tri-State Heating and Cooling. In my very first year as a freshman in college, I did over $1 million in sales, had 25 employees, 6 trucks, which now that's the equivalent of a $5 million business today. So here is the messaging that I want to leave with you, is that I started small, built my confidence, and then had a tremendous mindset to go to the future in a big way. So I just want to say this. It's easy to have a negative mindset. And if you start every day with a negative mindset, you got to do a couple things. You've got to turn yourself off and reboot. Do that. It's important because you have the potential to do it. Now, secondly, you need to ask for advice from someone you trust. And this can help you gain some of that confidence. And now you can start figuring out what that problem is. So start where you are and dump the negativity, because it's important that As Zig Ziglar said, you were designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness. Now believe it and start climbing, because the elevator to success is broken.
Now that we've unlocked the secret, the elevator to success is broken, it's time to get started. It is time to start moving and overcoming those obstacles that are in your path. If you haven't already, go ahead and open your guidebook and complete your activities and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
You may have heard it said, seeing is believing. But when it comes to selling, never forget this secret. Selling is believing. Not seeing, but selling. Success in selling depends on your mindset. You've got to believe. You can't sell well without the power of belief. There are two foundational things you need to believe when selling. First, you need to believe that people truly need this product or service. You need a rock-solid passion for it. If you don't have passion for what you're selling, how will people believe you? If they don't believe you, they won't do business with you. So I've got to tell you, if you don't believe in what you're selling, go sell something else. Quit wasting your time. Find something you do believe in and do that instead. Second, you need to believe that people will benefit from your product or service. If you don't believe that your product or service solves a need for other people, then why are you selling it in the first place? Believe in it and then show them that what you have will meet their needs. And if it doesn't meet their needs, don't try to sell it to them. But you've got to believe, as Zig Ziglar said, selling is nothing more than a transference of feeling. But if you don't believe in what you're selling, there's nothing to transfer. You want people to feel better after they hear about your product or service. How you feel about your product or service will transfer. That's why it's critical that your selling is genuinely focused on what the other person wants and not on yourself. Remember, the core secret: you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. You can only truly help other people by selling with sincerity. Let's watch as Zig Ziglar shares the vital importance of sincerity in selling.
Many years ago, in 1962, I was the #1 cookware salesman in our country. I was with the Salad Master Corporation from Dallas. I was living in Columbia, South Carolina. I was selling everybody in sight. One day I was over visiting with an associate who also represented the company. We did not represent the same part of the organization. He was starving to death. And as we sat there and talked and he was singing the blues, I said, "Well, Bill, I know what your problem is." "Man," he said, "tell me quick. I got to make sales." I said, "Well, the problem is simple. You do not believe in what you're selling." Old Bill about blew a gasket. He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Man, I left a company I'd been with over 5 years as a manager to come with this company as a salesperson because the product is so much better." I said, "Bill, peddle that baloney to somebody else. Man, I know that you don't believe in this product." And with that, I nodded toward the stove. He said, "Oh, you mean the fact that I'm cooking in a competitive set of cookware?" I said, "Exactly." "Oh, Zig," he said, "don't let that enter your mind." He said, "Nothing could be further from the truth. I believe we got the greatest set of cookware on the American market." But he said, "You know, Zig, I've had some difficulties. My wife's been in the hospital, and when she's in there, she's there 2 weeks. You can't half work. You worry." And he said, "I wrecked my car, and for 6 weeks I had to borrow transportation, and you can't sell when you have to depend on a taxi and the bus and borrowed cars and all." And he said, "Now, it looks like we're going to have to put the boys in the hospital and get their tonsils out, and I don't even have any insurance." But he said, "Zig, I'm going to get a set of the cookware." I said, "Bill, let me ask you, how long you been with this company?" He said, 5 years. I said, "What is your problem last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that?" I said, "Bill, let me tell you exactly what happens. When you're in a closing situation and you get down in the short rows and you ask the obligating question," I said, "I can see it now. The prospect looks at you and said, 'Oh, I don't know, Bill. Daggone it all, we sure need to buy a good set of pots. But now's not the right time. You know, Bill, my wife's been in the hospital a couple of weeks, and man, you can't have work when your wife's in the hospital. You're worrying about it. We raided a car not too long ago, and for 6 weeks we had to depend on borrowed transportation, and you just can't have to do things that way. And now, looks like we're going to have to put the boys in the hospital, and we don't even have any insurance. Now, I said, Bill, you and I both know that no prospect's ever going to give you the same 5 things or 3 things you gave me. But what they are going to do is this. They're going to bring up excuses you've been using for years. And you're a positive thinker, Bill. I know you're sitting there saying to yourself, now, think positive, Bill, think positive, Bill, think positive, Bill. But all the time, deep in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's the very reason I don't have a set of the stuff myself. Now, I said, Bill, let me tell you something. And if you don't ever hear me say another thing, hear me when I say this. Selling is not a thing in this world but a transference of feeling. If I can make you feel about the product I'm selling like I feel about the product I'm selling, you will buy my product. I said, Bill, you must own a set of this cookware. If you have to mortgage your furniture, do it. He said, you really think it's that important? I said, I know it is that important. Well, to bring the story to a close, I sold him a set of the cookware. Now, obviously, he wrote his own order. But the interesting thing is that that week, Bill made enough extra sales to completely pay for that set of cookware. Now, why was that? Very simple. He knew that he had sacrificed. He knew he had to dig deep in order to make the purchase. And then when the prospect would start giving the objections, Bill could honestly, sincerely, and conscientiously say, yes, indeed, it's fully worth whatever the price is. It'll make a difference in your home. At this point, I would like to share with you what I believe is a very significant close. It's called the pressure belief close. At this point, what I want to simply say to you is that we've had some ideas, some procedures, and some stimulation. But when I talk about a pressure belief close, it happened in Australia. I was with my friend John Nevin. He was with World Book Encyclopedia. He told me of what happened to him when his career first got started as a World Book salesperson, and he went on to become the managing director. Called on a little German couple. They really were more like grandparents. They'd been in Australia a very brief time. Their English was not real good. The little lady was 51 years old. She had given birth to their one and only child when she was nearly 45 years old. A very little short lady. Had language difficulty. He called on them at roughly 9 o'clock in the evening. It was way past midnight when he left with the order. As he started to leave, she put her hand up on his shoulder. She had walked him through the front yard because they had a vicious dog, got him outside the gate. She reached up and put her hand on his shoulder. And I can't emulate that guttural German accent, but in essence it went like this. Thank you. Thank you, young man, for stay with us till we know what these books do for our boy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Pressure belief is simply this. It's when you believe so fervently and so completely that that prospect is going to benefit the most by buying from you, that you are willing to kind of put your ego on the line. You're willing to take a slight risk even on occasion of offending someone by asking for the order again. Now let me stress something. You got to do it pleasantly. You got to do it politely. You got to do it professionally. You must by all means do it with that person's interest at heart. But if you really believe they're the winner, you will become so professional in what you do. You will learn so many closes that you will be able, basically, to go forward with the conviction that you are rendering them a service. Now, only experience, judgment, and common sense will dictate to you what is the proper time and what is the proper amount.
I believe in the power of transference when you're selling. And I believe that the mind has the power to actually shape reality. Now, let me explain. I was in front of a crowd at an annual conference, the 3M Corporation. Now, they're a $100 billion company. And I was speaking in front of nearly 1,000 key executives and key distributors. And to set the tone, many of these people had been with 3M for 10 years, 20 years, some as many as 30 years. And here I'm coming in to talk about the disruption in the marketplace and the dropping of television viewership and the power of digital marketing. And as I was speaking about building funnels and using digital is this new way to market and get customers to their key executives. And I was transferring my belief and my power in what I was talking about. At the end of my speech, I went off to the side and I was rushed by many of these executives. And then the key person from the entire event that came and said, Kevin, listen, we've heard a lot of speakers and we just have to say that many of the things you talked about, we're not doing. You know, we need to be doing. When can you come to our headquarters in Minneapolis and speak to some of our key people that can make some decisions and maybe implementing some of these techniques and powerful things that you talked about? So this was very powerful for me because it was the transference of my belief in what I was talking about that got them excited about it to the point where we went to Minneapolis and signed 3M as a client to do business with our digital marketing company. So I've lived my life with this quote, and this is Paul J. Myers, and he says, whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. And these are the 4 words I want you to remember. Imagine, desire, believe, and act. And those are the 4 words that I live every day by.
Now that the secret has been revealed to you, selling is believing. It's time to take action. Do you believe in what you are selling? Can you transfer that belief to the person you're selling to? If you haven't already, take out your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
You have the power to sell. The power is already within you. But do you choose to believe it? You see, believing in yourself is a choice. You can have a better life and greater sales success, but you have to make the choice to do so. When most people encounter a setback, they instinctively react to what happens in a negative way and then spend the rest of the day dealing with the mess created by that reaction. Before you know it, a bad day turns into a bad week and a lot of lost sales or growth. But you can choose to respond instead of react. You can choose to take intentional action that aligns with your own positive view of yourself. By choosing to respond and believing in yourself, you can begin to take the necessary steps to real progress in your life. Rather than react to rejection or failure in a negative way, choose to respond in a positive way. If you don't think that you have the power to choose, then let me let Zig Ziglar sell you on this truth as only he can.
I'm going to start by asking you 4 questions. First of all, how many of you honestly and sincerely believe, as a matter of fact, you're totally convinced there's something you can specifically do in the next 3 weeks that would make your personal life, your family life, and your business life worse? Can I see your hand, all right? Then how many of you believe there's something you can do in the next 3 weeks that would specifically make your personal life, your family life, and your business life better? Can I see your hand, okay? How many of you believe the choice is yours? Okay? How many of you believe every choice has an end result? Okay? Now let me tell you what you just said, whether you realized it or not. You just said, look, I don't really care about what's happened in my past. I don't even care what my circumstances are at the moment, because there's something I can specifically do right now that will make my future either better or worse, and the choice is mine. Folks, that's an awesome realization. It eliminates the blame game. It eliminates an awful lot of things, because it means you've got a choice. I love the story of the old Eskimo in the long ago. Up in the coldest region of Alaska, where they used to have dog fights every Saturday, and the old Eskimo had a black dog and a white dog, and every Saturday those two dogs would just go at it big time until finally they wore each other out, and over a period of years they'd lost their zeal for fighting, and so he retired them. And one day one of the local villagers said, I noticed something kind of unusual. I noticed that one Saturday the black dog would win, and some Saturday the white dog would win. But I noticed that you always won yourself. Regardless of which one won, you'd always bet on him. How did you know which one to bet on? Oh, he said, it was easy. I always bet on the one I'd been feeding all week. Now, you see, there's the positive and the negative. You have a choice as to what you want to feed in your mind. As you've heard me say several times already, you're what you are and where you are because of what's going into your mind. You can change what you are. You can change where you are by changing what goes into your mind. Feed the positive and you will be positive. I'm really talking in this session about hope. Alfred Adler, the great psychologist and psychiatrist, made this statement. He said, hope is the foundational quality of all change. No hope, no change. John Maxwell put it this way: if there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. Hope is the great activator. The student with no hope of passing won't study. Why bother? I'm going to fail anyhow. The salesperson with no hope of making the sale won't make the call. I mean, what's the purpose? I'm not going to make a sale anyhow. The couple whose marriage is in trouble won't seek counseling because, why bother? Hey, this is a done deal. It's all over now. But give that person hope, and then action will take place, and exciting action will take place. Dr. Tony Campolo says that your past is important because it brought you to where you are. But as important as your past is, it is not nearly as important as the way you see your future. The way you see your future determines your thinking today. Your thinking today determines your performance today. Your performance today has a strong bearing on what that future is going to be. Now, Dr. Campolo was saying, yes, your past is important, but he said the other's even more important. And he said, I understand what's happened in the past. I know that you were abused as a child. I know that you've had an alcohol and drug problem. I know that you've gone bankrupt a couple of times. I know you've gone through a couple of divorces. I know all of those things about you, but I still say the way you see the future is more important than what has happened in the past. Today is a brand new day. This is the day that you can make the decisions that will make such an incredible difference in your life. The way that you look at that future is so important, but you got to plan for it. You were born to win, that's true. But in order to be the winner you were born to be, you got to plan to win. You got to prepare to win. And then and only then can you legitimately expect to win. Winning is not an accident. It is the result of a deliberate plan.
The choice is all yours. You can choose to react or respond to what life sends your way. To respond is positive. To react is negative. Let me use an example. You get sick, you go to the doctor. He gives you a prescription and says, see you tomorrow. You go back the next day and he starts shaking his head and says, man, we got to do something. Got to change the prescription. Your body has been reacting to the medicine. But if you go back the next day and he smiles and says, hey, it's working, your body is responding to the medicine. That's something to be excited about. Now, when you encounter disappointments or rejections, you can either choose a positive, helpful response, or you can choose to react in a negative, unhealthy way. It's really that simple.
know about you, but it really challenged me to hear Zig and Kevin talk about the power we have to sell. So let's dig a little deeper into this secret. Kevin, I have to ask, in your own life, what was one example, I'm sure you have many, but one example where you chose to respond rather than react?
I could probably talk about hundreds, but we don't have all that time today. So I'll start with one.
Okay.
I'll go way back. It's almost 30 years ago. I was in the business of infomercials, which I still do a little bit of that, but we had this product called a hand-hammered Chinese wok. And so it had pounding marks because when they made them in China, they started with a flat piece of metal and they hand pounded it until it became molded to a style of a wok, right? But with the pound marks, when you cooked in it, you could actually, the meats needed to cook longer and the vegetables you could pull up, and those pounding marks would hold the vegetables around the side. Thus, we called it the Great Wok of China, okay?
Love that.
So it was hand hammered. And so my first order, we had sold 10,000 Chinese woks, $40 a piece, and so we had the credit cards, and now the product was coming in, and they said, "How do you want it shipped?" I said, "Well, get it here cheap. I don't want to spend a lot of money for freight, but So when the woks arrived on the West Coast, because they came from China, they were made in China. They called and said, "Oh, we have terrible news. All the woks are rusted." And I said, "What do you mean they're rusted?" They said, "Well, you wanted the cheapest way to ship. They put them on top of the boat, not inside the boat. So the mist and the spray from the ocean voyage rusted all your Chinese woks." So now, there's two options at that point, okay? Because I'm about ready to lose $400,000 because I have $400,000 in credit cards that I'm going to have to refund, give back, not be able to cash, right? So I could blow up, I could explode, I could close the business down, I could say I'm out of business, I could really have a meltdown, right? So that actually was sort of around the company, a few reactions inside the company. We're done.
I bet.
We couldn't take a $400,000 loss, right? But instead of reacting, I responded. I'm like, okay, what are the issues? How do we solve this problem, right? So, because I'm a problem solver.
Yes.
And I think Zig Ziglar was a problem solver too,
definitely
right?
was.
I think having a level head at that point was important. So I said, well, okay, there's rust on the woks. How do I get the rust off? I hired a bunch of college kids in LA to get some Brillo pads, and they went in, and by the time they got done, we tested a few. We tested 10, brought them back. Actually, even better looking than they were coming out of the factory, because they were pristinely scrubbed, clean, and so they were, very beautiful woks now because we scrubbed them into a better condition than they were leaving the factory. So now I had an average cost of about $1 a wok in labor, and I had to buy a new box because the boxes were moldy and wet and whatever from the mist. But for somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000, we resolved that problem, not $400,000. That was sort of an allowable expense to be back in business. So I just, the people around me were like, wow, you've saved the company, right? Now, that's the first. I said I got 100 stories. I could tell you 99
These are
more.
Good. This is a good one.
But that was the very first one. But I always looked at a problem as a challenge and not as I'm out of business. And when you react, it can destroy you. And because sometimes that negativity, you focus on the negativity, and that can cloud your mind to be able to think of something to be able to solve the problem.
Well, of course. But why is it that some people focus on the negative when they have a choice? Like you had a choice, you chose to be positive. So why is it some people focus on negative and others they don't make the choice?
I wake up every day, I love a half full glass instead of a half empty glass, right? Okay? You know what I mean? So, did Zig Ziglar tell people that that's how you got to approach your life on a daily basis, right? Don't be small-minded. And I think small-minded people let the negative get them so upset that then their energy is focused on just overcoming that negative feeling as opposed to overcoming the problem that actually is at hand to be solved. So One of the things I say is when you get into a little bit of a problem, for me as a successful entrepreneur, I use a lot of passion and energy to become successful. So when I get into a problem, I say, how do I use that same passion and energy to solve the problem instead of using it to overcome what's a negative thought? And so the negative thoughts are going to happen all the time, but I think a lot of people just have unrealistic expectations. I think they think, there shouldn't be problems. They ship me these rusted Chinese woks or whatever, different things like this. But that's business, okay? I mean, again, in all the years of all the products and all the things, we expect challenges because it's a certain percentage of the products that are manufactured are going to be defective. There's going to be issues. Not too long ago, I had 50,000 pieces of a product shipped to QVC, turned down after inspection, and we had to go back, rework them, and we actually ended, we could have reacted very negatively, but we responded and ended up having a way to solve that problem, which, I don't want to get into all that. We don't have all that time today, but, we're digging deeper here because I just believe that I expect challenges. I want to handle them the best way possible. I want to focus on solving the problem, use the same energy and passion and belief that I can solve the problem. And by the way, there's one other thing you can do here. Sometimes you got to make a couple phone calls to get a little bit of advice from some other people, because there's people smarter than me and you and many of us out there that might have had some of these issues before, and what did they do to solve those problems, right? So, I mean, maybe if something is totally gone, maybe insurance is just going to pay for all of it, and let's not ruin our life or think we're going to close the business down, right? But again, explore all the avenues to solve the problem and keep a positive mental attitude.
Because ultimately, it really is just a choice that we all have the opportunity.
It's just a choice, and it's if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you're never going to have 100% success and 100% of no issues, okay? So I just try to minimize the negativity in my life, and then when I get it, deal with it in as positive a way as you can.
We've unlocked the secret. You have the power to sell, so it's time to take action. Do you believe in the power that you have? If you do, that will generate results for you. If you haven't already, go ahead and open your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret so you can start enjoying your sales success now.
You are what you are and where you are because of what has gone into your mind. You can change what you are and where you are by changing what goes into your mind. That's how Zig Ziglar put it, and he was right on target. What you choose to put into your mind comes out in your daily life and determines how you go about selling anything, including yourself. That's why you need to carefully choose what you put into your mind, and in the words of Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't. You're right. If you want to be successful, you must have the proper mental diet, because what goes in determines what comes out. I live my life according to this secret. I surround myself with new information every day. I keep learning and improving my life. I minimize negative inputs that might hold me back from being my best. I choose to surround myself with people who encourage me and move me closer to my goals. And Zig did the same thing. Zig wasn't just one of the top speakers in the world. He was also an avid reader. He would spend 3 hours a day reading so he could better sell his message of personal growth and sales success. The more he knew, the more he could help other people get what they wanted. Let's watch the following montage of Zig's wisdom about the power of giving yourself a positive mental diet.
Now you see, there's the positive and the negative. You have a choice as to what you want to feed in your mind. As you've heard me say several times already, you're what you are and where you are because of what's going into your mind. You can change what you are. You can change where you are by changing what goes into your mind. Feed the positive and you will be positive.
A number of years ago, I heard a philosopher say, you are where you are because that's exactly where you want to be. And boy, that sounded so philosophical too. You know, I went all over the country saying, you are where you are because that's exactly where you want to be. And the wise old owls in the audience would nod, you know, and say, that's right, that's exactly right. You know, isn't it amazing the number of us that want to sound philosophical? And then one night, I was in Birmingham, Alabama, on my way to Meridian, Mississippi, and the roads were under repair. So I stopped at a service station to get direction, and the young attendant not only gave me the directions, but he was kind enough to draw me a map. He said, now, sir, if you will follow these directions as I have laid them out, I'll guarantee you'll get to Meridian with plenty of time to spare. Well, I followed the directions exactly as he laid them out, but 1 hour later, I was exactly 45 miles further from Meridian than I had been when I got the directions. Now, folks, I wasn't there because that's where I wanted to be. Man, I was tired and sleepy. I wanted to be in bed. I was there because some dude gave me the wrong directions. And I'm going to look you dead center and say this. If you're broke, I don't really believe that's what you want. If you're despondent, I can't believe that that's what you want. If you're down in the dumps, if you're negative, if you're miserable and all those things, I don't believe that's what you really want. I believe that maybe, just maybe, you might be there because somebody has given you some wrong directions. We're going to show you how to get these things, and we're going to start out simply by saying that we've got to eliminate what we call garbage dump thinking. Now, let me tell you about this. In a large southern city, there's a beautiful new shopping center. But 25 years ago, this shopping center was the city dump. For over 100 years, the citizens had been dumping the garbage there. It was a mess, as you could well imagine. Then 25 years ago, they quit dumping the garbage. The local builders started hauling their excavated dirt from their new buildings out to the old garbage dump. Took them several years. But several thousand loads of dirt later, they had completely submerged all of that old garbage. And the builder looked at it and he said, hey, I believe the foundation is ready. Let's build a shopping center. And that's exactly what he did. But if you think about it for a moment, that shopping center is built, well, it's built on garbage, isn't it? Now, I tell this story because, you see, over a period of time, there might have been a lot of negative garbage dumped in your mind. There might have been a lot of people saying, you can't, you can't, you can't. And I'm going to say to you simply, that is nothing in this world but garbage. We're going to absolutely bury that old garbage so that you can start from where you are right now today with what you have and build on that foundation and get the things that you want. Now, I hope you will be realistic enough to agree with me when I say that you can't make an overdraft on the Bank of Right Mental Attitude all of your life and then expect to bring the account up to date with one simple deposit.
In the last 20 years, I have literally invested an average of over 3 hours a day in reading and research, mostly about human nature and human development and growth and improvement and how do you develop and use what is inside of you. If there's anything I've been totally convinced of, it is this. 98% of the people in our Western civilization have a picture of themselves which is so narrow and so shallow that it literally bears no resemblance to the real person who is there. So many people have been told so many times what they cannot do that they have no idea what they can do. They have no idea what they want in life because they have no idea what is available to them. The picture they have of themselves will not permit themselves to see some of the magnificent things that are available. Now let me tell you something, folks. You're what you are and you're where you are because of what's gone into your mind. Now you can change what you are. You can change where you are by changing what goes into your mind.
Welcome back. As we prepare to talk more about the importance of the right mental diet to your sales success, let's go ahead and start with a fun question. Kevin, what is your daily mental diet?
I like fun questions, okay? So thank you. So first of all, I love reading, and I think that having a great mental diet is vital to enrich your mind, right? And I know Zig Ziglar read about 3 hours a day. I'm between 2 and 3 hours a day. It depends on the day, because if I finish at 11 o'clock at night, I only get 2 hours in.
Right.
But if I finish at 9 o'clock, I'll get 3 hours in. So, but I read 5 newspapers every day, and I love, I have business papers like the Wall Street Journal, and I have the local business paper in the local market that I'm in, because I want to see what's going on there. But I also have like the New York Times, which is kind of all the news fit to print. And then I also recommend some, I call it junk food for the brain. So I love kind of like some of the zany stuff. I tune into the worlds of celebrities. So sometimes it's People and Us Magazine, and the New York Post has a lot of funny stuff, crazy stuff. Page 6 is a fun thing for me. So newspapers, magazines, trade journals, publications, all these kinds of things, and this is reading material. So, I get, houseware magazines and electronic news magazines, all these different magazines and trade journals that I subscribe to.
Right.
And so that's reading that I do I consume a lot of TV still. I know a lot of the millennials don't watch a lot of TV, but I still love the CNNs and the news shows. And as I travel, I don't, I tune right into the Fox News or CNN to get kind of the latest what's going on. But I also love to watch the shopping channels. Okay.
Oh yes.
You think,
wonder why?
I watch QVC and HSN. I'm seeing what products are moving. So I'm now we talked about reading. Now we're talking about watching. Now let's go to the internet.
Okay.
I'm on Amazon and all the kind of. There's one called Alibaba out of China, right? So I'm looking at what are the hot selling products on the hottest of the day, right? The trends, right? So I'm also tuning in, because the internet is where all the news ultimately you can get it, right? So as you just keep going down the path here from reading to watching TV to now the internet, now you can start doing podcasts. And there's some amazing guys, like there's a guy, his name is Joe Polish, and he has, he does I Love Marketing, right? So John Lee Dumas, and John Lee puts out Entrepreneur on Fire. So I love listening to all of those kind of things. So on a daily basis, I'm definitely consuming more than 3 hours worth of content and exploring. And I call it, put your mind on a curiosity overload, or, a curiosity diet, okay? Because at the end of the day, I deal in a lot of industries because of, I'm a product guy. We deal in housewares, hardware, fitness, beauty, golf, fishing, every category ultimately you can think of. So it's important. I'm getting all those trade journals. I'm going to those trade shows. I'm focused on keeping up to speed on as many industries as I can on a day-to-day basis. And my wife looks at me sometimes and says, like we'll go to the beach or hang out at the pool, and I got a stack like this. She says, I thought we were having fun today. I said, well, actually, this is fun.
This is fun, right?
But and then sometimes I got to just put it aside and go hang out.
Sure.
But there is a time and place for it, and I love it, and it's important that people focus on putting that some kind of a start small. Don't do 3 hours a day if you're not used to it, but do a half hour a day, an hour a day, and as you start becoming more knowledgeable about the different things that you're focused on, it can be as you said, you had a fun question. It's a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely, well, I can tell you're a learner, and it is so important that good mental diet. Let's talk about technology though, because Zig, he didn't have the technological advances that we do today.
Right.
So what are some ways that technology can help with creating that good mental diet?
Yeah, so if you take the various things that I was just talking about, there are, I subscribe to these news aggregators on the internet, right? So what they do is you can go in and aggregate all the information that's all over the internet in certain categories, and they will search all the internet sources, the Yahoos and the AOLs, everything that's out there, and they'll spit back to you all the information that comes out on a daily basis on those topics. Now you got to be careful not to pick too many topics, or you can have hours and hours to read. But I did a test on this once in the franchising industry, and I said I want you to scour the entire internet internet, anything that revolves around franchising, and I started getting this really cool daily report on the latest and the greatest trends and things happening and new announcements and publicity in the franchising world. So, aggregators like this, I travel a lot, so if I go out of town, these 5 newspapers that come to my house, what do I do with them, right? Well, I have somebody that make sure he picks them up, because in 3 or 4 days I got 20, 30 magazines and newspapers and trade journals laying all over the lawn. So I've got a guy that picks them up, but what he does is he actually takes certain sections, because when I come back, I still like to read what was going on, especially the local stuff. I can get some of the national news, obviously, on the road, and I do have subscriptions to New York Times and Wall Street Journal, both, in person, in print in my hand, but we're talking about internet here, technology.
Yes.
If I travel 20 days a month, I get those in an electronic form on the internet. So sometimes you have to pay a little extra to do that. But
worth it.
But I like to see, it's crazy because one of my neighbors got arrested recently, and I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't kept all the newspapers.
Wow.
And I'm like, let's see, what was he doing? So I like to keep
you up to date with the Joneses.
Keep up on what's going on in the neighborhood, right? So, but technology is amazing, and this is also why. In the old days, you couldn't go to Amazon and find the top 25 products of the day.
So true.
But today, you can go and you can check all this stuff out, and you get. What's really cool about that is you just see what's trending, what's hot, what are the color schemes, what are the price points, all of that kind of stuff. And as a marketer, I want to be on top of that, right? So that, from a technology standpoint, I love exploring and aggregating as much as I can.
Yes. Well, and I know several of you who are watching can relate to this. Not everybody has this great daily mental diet that you have, the 3 hours, but they want to. And Zig used to always say, nobody wants to be in a bad place, but maybe somebody gave you some bad directions along the way.
Yeah,
So what advice would you give to people that are trying to find their way back to having that positive mental diet?
Well, I think it starts on a daily basis. Where do you go? What are your thoughts? Think positive. Go to positive places, right? I don't mean necessarily you got to start by going to church every morning or something like that. I just mean, maybe go to networking events. Go to places where positive people are hanging out. And certainly church is a great place to go to also. But, my mom went to church 6 days a week, and I couldn't make it quite every day with her, but that was a very positive place to be.
Yes.
But in my world, I go to chambers of commerce meetings, networking events, local, national. I go to a lot of trade shows. I go to the new product showcases. And when you go to, just think about this. If you go, I've been to the Chicago Houseware Show 30 out of 31 years in the last in Chicago,
goodness,
right? Now, do you think I'm going to meet some positive people there that are launching their new products?
Yes.
When you're walking booth to booth, they're like, come in the booth, let me tell you about how great my product is. I love being around that.
You can't help but get that energy.
So, if you have negative things happening in your life, you can change it up. You have to expose yourself to positive content, positive people, positive places, networking opportunities, and it'll change your mind. And the other thing is, like when I go to these places, I'll go to the new product showcases inside the houseware show or the hardware show or the fitness show, wherever it might be. These are entrepreneurs launching new products. They're the most kind of like rabidly passionate about their products, So I just, and that's the business I'm in. Shark Tank, what was it all about? Taking pitches from inventors, right? So they're like, Kevin, can I show you my new idea? And like, sometimes, they even go over the top, but I don't hold that against them. This is their life, their passion, their desire, and I just love being part of that. So. You've got 2 ways to wake up in the morning. One is you can just be thinking life's tough and you're negative and you're going down the wrong path, or you can expose yourself to positive people, positive things, positive places, opportunities, and it's a mindset shift is all you need.
It is, and it's just filling your mind with the good, the pure, the positive, and it is all a choice.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kevin. Now that you know the secret, what goes in determines what comes out. It's time to take action. Go on a mental diet. Replace the negative that comes into your mind with positive. If you haven't already, open your guidebook and complete your exercises and record your key takeaway for this secret. Also, make sure you complete your mental diet plan worksheet so you can start enjoying your sales success now.